Okay. Great. Okay. Peter, we're gonna get started, okay? And then other people will come in as we get going here. So, first of all, there are two shout outs I want to make for this shiur. The first is to my mom, who heard that I was bored and got me this book on origami, The Joy of Origami, which I highly suggest for activities during quarantine. And then also, second shout out is also just to this author, Margaret Van Sicklen, for showing me how to do some origami. So it's a pretty awesome book, and it's the first time I've ever done it. Peter, have you ever done origami before?
Not in years.
Not in years. Yeah. This is my first time doing it, and I was like completely blown away with with one particular concept that we're going to talk about today. So what I'm going to ask you to get, if you don't already have it, you don't have to get it, but it'll definitely make the shiur a little more interesting for you, is if you have 2 square pieces of paper, you can get a normal 8.5 by 11, kind of fold the corner like such, and then make a crease and then cut it, and you'll have a square piece of paper. Hello, Jennifer. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi. So
Hi, Rabbi Rotenberg. How are you?
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm going to get my paper now.
Perfect. Go grab your paper now. Okay, so I'll give everybody just a minute to grab their paper. This is for you too, everybody who's on YouTube watching either now or streaming. Now's a really good time to get 2 square pieces of paper. And another shout out to this book, The Joy of Origami. It actually comes with square papers in the back. So great worksheet activity.
Rabbi Rotenberg, how do I get the video back on? I stopped it. How do I restart it? Do you know?
You should just press on the bottom left, start video. But I can hear you just fine, Jennifer.
Oh.
Can you see me?
Nope.
Well.
No, I can't. I might call back in.
Okay, that's fine.
Let me call back in.
Okay, I am gonna continue with this part, and Jennifer, don't worry, we'll be doing this fold twice throughout the shiur. Okay, so here's what you're gonna do. We're gonna make what's called a simple square base. I'll show you what it looks like here. This is the goal. I'm going to share my screen just for 1 second so you can see what we're going to try to make here. So here, this is what we're going to be making. So we can actually, why don't I continue to share it for now while we're folding. You're going to take your piece of square paper, and the first thing you're going to do is fold it in half. See number 1 here, you're going to fold it in half long ways. You're going to crease it really nicely. These creases are going to make a huge difference later on. And by the way, we will be talking about what we can learn from this Jewishly soon. But first we're going to crease. So first, step 1, fold and unfold your piece of paper. So now you should have a piece of paper with 1 crease going lengthwise. Then after you open it, you're going to take it again and you're going to fold it long ways and crease it. So this is step number 2, and crease it really nicely. Remember, the creases are what we're really going to be talking about today because they make a huge difference. Okay, so now you should have a paper that has 2 creases in it. If you are following along with the paper, hold it up so I see what you're doing here. Yes, Jennifer, that looks good. Okay, good. And I can't tell if that's a square piece of paper, but that's okay. So now what we're gonna do is you're gonna flip it. See, check it out. Flip over is the next step. And 3, in the diagonals, you're going to fold it again. And look at the picture. You're going to fold it so that the top corner is going to touch the bottom corner there and give it a really nice crease. Okay, now this is my favorite part. Oh, and by the way, caveat here, I am not an expert origami person. I've made this square base a few times and have been surprised every time with how it's turned out. So now you're going to flip it back around to the original side that you had it. Here, I'm going to stop sharing here so you can see what I'm looking at. This is what I'm looking at now. You're going to fold it along that diagonal corner, along that diagonal fold. So it's top corner to bottom corner. And now, following your existing creases, you should be able to just push those sides in like so. And notice it should be really easy because you'll follow the very creases that you made. There's no forcing it. The paper should just collapse into this nice square base is what it's called. So this is what the inside looks like here. And I didn't have to do anything really to get it to make that shape because the creases themselves actually cause the paper to kind of fall naturally like that. Peter or Jennifer, did you guys have any luck with it?
Not yet.
Not yet. And Jennifer, I couldn't hear you. Say it again.
I missed the part about it had to be a square page.
Okay, square page is
You
important.
can't do it 8.5 by 14, so I cut it. But let me see. Can I see how you did that? It's a square.
We'll do it one more time. So you fold down like this.
Yeah.
And crease it significantly. Unfold after you make the crease. Then you fold it like that. So now you're, you should have 2 creases in it at this point, one lengthwise and one long ways, like that, and crease it significantly. Then you're going to flip the paper and along the diagonal, make another crease.
Mm-hmm.
Unfold it, flip it again, and then you're going to, along that diagonal crease, fold it top corner to bottom corner. And then naturally just push in those 2 sides. And because you've already made those creases, they just fall naturally into place. Like that. Now,
Yeah.
oh, it worked for you. Great.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. So it's a lot easier said than done. Admittedly, it took me a few times to get this. But the first time that it just, that the paper landed, Peter got it, nice. The first time that the fold landed perfectly, I was shocked because I had never made anything out of paper so nice before. I know it's a simple fold, but I was kind of taken with the idea that the creases I had made would actually help me in my final, in the final, thing that I was going for here. I thought that in order to make something like this, it would take multiple creases throughout just for that last step. But that last step was so dependent on the creases that we made in steps 1 and 2. And so that was very surprising to me. And the more origami I've done, I've noticed that every single crease matters, because that's going to affect how the paper ultimately folds in the end. The way that it looks in the end is totally dependent on the creases you make at every single step of the way. And if you make one wrong crease, then your paper is likely not going to fold in the way you'd like it to. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is the connection between how those creases affect origami and a few different Jewish sources about how our own choices, form the habits we make. So I'm going to now share my screen so we can look at these few sources together. One is relevant as far as the change we just made in liturgy, and one is a text that we look at closer to Rosh Hashanah and conversations about tshuva. Okay, so here are the two texts. The first one is the Talmud, Arachim 30b. I'll read it. It says, Rav Huna says, once a person commits a transgression and repeats it, it is permitted to them. Okay, this is a very surprising statement. What do you mean it's permitted to them? Just because I do something wrong means all of a sudden that I can, do it from here on out? So the Talmud continues. It says, can we really say that it's actually permitted to them because they transgressed, twice? Rather, say that it becomes as though it were permitted to them. So, and we'll also read this one too. This one is useful now as far as what's happening in our liturgy. So in our, I'll stop sharing for a second. In the Amidah, in the second blessing, there's an additional line we say, maybe you've heard it, Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashim. We'll say that in the second paragraph of the Amidah. And that's actually a prayer for rain. We'll say that in the winter months, up until Passover, until the cancer says Musaf on Passover, we continue to say Mashiv Haruach Umorid Hagashim. Farnaz, did you have something you wanted to add to that? I see you've taken yourself. Okay. And then starting on Passover, you take out that line entirely, because now we're in the summer months and we no longer pray for rain. And so in this source, we're going to ask the question, well, what if one doesn't know if they said it or not in the Amidah? Because if you did say it in the summer months, you actually need to go and start your Amidah all over again. But what if you're unsure if you said it or not? So that's where this source comes in. So this is from the Shulchan Aruch from Origami. It says, in the summer months, what if one is unsure whether one said Morid Hagashim or not? And then it says, until 30 successful days of not mentioning Morid Hagashim, one is assumed to have mentioned it, which is to say, you're assumed to be in the habit of saying these words. And if you haven't gone through 30 days successfully of saying your Amidah without mentioning those words, then you're still considered to be in a habit. And to me, both of these sources are tied intimately to these creases. The more one creases a paper, an origami paper, that's the way it's going to fall. And these are kind of the habits we make. The choices that we make in life are essentially these creases. And the question that we should ask ourselves is, how do we want the fabric of our life, so to speak, to not unfold, but to fold? Hello, Rosa, welcome. So in this first paragraph, in this first source, we learned that the more one makes a decision, that becomes as if it were permitted to them because they make it into a habit. For instance, a good example is one is not, permitted to say cook on Shabbat. But let's say one does it one week and then one does it the next week and the next week. It's not that it becomes permitted now, but they've now developed a habit of doing it. It's as if they're making this crease and now it's hard to uncrease that paper. Same thing here. What we learn from this source is it is possible to change a habit, but it takes a lot. I don't know if you've ever, I'm going to show you this piece of paper. This is a messed up piece of origami paper that unfolded from an unsuccessful origami attempt. And you'll notice there's tons and tons of creases in here. And I've tried with great pains to uncrease this paper. And I'll tell you, it is extremely difficult, if not impossible. And to me, that symbolism is so powerful. When we make choices, we're folding our paper. And when we do those choices over and over again, when we continue to act on that, we're creasing it and we're creasing it and we're creasing it. And that becomes, a fixed way that our paper folds. So that way, when you want your origami paper, to fold maybe into a nice square base, it can't because these creases make it very difficult. So I'd like to do this folding exercise again. This is why I asked you to get two papers. Our first one was a clean sheet of paper. And because, all of our creases were exactly where we wanted them to be, it folded so nicely into this beautiful square base. So now I'm going to invite you to do another exercise. We can even make it kind of a spiritual exercise where I want you to take your other piece of paper and I want you to add random creases to it. So Jennifer, you'll need another square piece of paper, and Rosa, I know you weren't here for the first one, but you're welcome to watch, or grab a piece of paper if you'd like. And for anybody watching on YouTube, what I would ask you to do is get a piece of paper and crease it in random locations. And when you do, I want you to think about these creases as choices that you continue to make that you'd like to change. So, try it. Or by the way, just crease it randomly. Your choice if you want to add that sort of reflective element to it. But take a piece of paper and take a few moments and just kind of crease it in random locations. Jennifer, did you grab another piece of paper?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. Great. And we're gonna
I got
crease
a
it.
lot of
And look, if you want,
I got
a lot of
creases. A lot of things I need to change here.
okay, yeah, a lot of creases. Yeah, me too. So yeah, let's really get in there. Peter, I see you're not creasing. That's fine. You can just watch. You can watch me and Jennifer crease here. So, but okay, here's the deal. And by the way, then if you really want to do this, you can crush it up too and try to get really make it like a heavily creased piece of paper. Because the truth is, the longer how often do we actually get a clean sheet of paper, so to speak? There's a lot of opportunities in life, where in the Jewish calendar where we start anew. We have a new week every 7 days. We have a new month roughly every 30 days. We have a new year. There's different times where maybe we can grant ourselves a new piece of paper. But when we're thinking about how we want to use our paper, a lot of it looks like this. This to me, this is probably what my life looks more closely These are all the kinds of choices. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to try to do the same fold as we did before with a square base. We're going to try to do it with a heavily creased piece of paper. And we're going to see what it feels like when we're finishing it. Remember how nicely in the first instance, the paper folded, along the creases and just naturally fell into that, square base that we were going for. Now we're going to try to do the same thing, but with all the creases, I think we're going to see it's more difficult for this paper to end up the way we would like it to. So you can follow along. We're going to do it again. Take your paper and you're going to fold it down like this, top to bottom, and give it a really strong crease across the middle. Then you're going to fold it side to side and also give it a really strong crease in the middle. Okay, so at this point, there are lots of creases in this piece of paper, but two that you've made, one going down like that and one going across like that. Then you're going to fold the paper back on itself, top corner to bottom corner. Like this. Nice, Peter and Jennifer, this is great. I see your origami skills are coming along. Okay, now you're gonna, using that diagonal fold, you're going to try and fold it in the opposite direction, top corner to bottom corner. And then using the existing creases, let the square sides kind of fall into the center like you did before. But you'll notice this time they do not fall as easily. Right, you see that? I mean, you can kind of make something like it, but it's not gonna, it just doesn't fall as easily. Yeah, Jennifer says, nope.
Nope, ain't happening.
Yeah, and so when I, in my week of being an origami master, thanks to this book, I've been so surprised by the effect that creases have in paper and the way that it affects the way the paper ultimately folds. And what we learned from these sources, and I think, symbolically from origami is, you need to ask yourself, what is sort of the shape that you want, this, time, to fold up into this week, this month, this year. What do you want it to look like? And so the questions that we need to ask now are, what are those creases we need to make? That is to say, what are the choices that we want to do? So that way, ultimately, at the end of the year, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, at the end of your life even, the paper folds, beautifully into a square base. Now, let's see if I can do it again here. There we go. So look at that. See, if you make the right creases, then the paper just folds exactly the way you want it to. And the other thing that's, beautiful and symbolic about this is it's not so complicated to make something beautiful. I mean, it is, because this is about the most complex thing I can do in origami. But when you're thinking about the choices we make in our life and the goals we have, each, long-term goal is really a series of, one-time creases that you make. You don't need to worry so much about the final product if each crease you make is leading toward it. You don't need to worry about making the square base. What you need to worry about is first creasing it one time long ways, creasing it one time length, according to its length, and then each crease actually leads to the final product that you're going to. That's it. To me, that's like the great lesson of origami that I've come to appreciate over this last week. And in our Jewish sources too, it says, in that source that mentioned that it takes 30 days, until we're expected to have changed a habit. It is to say that, our life is similar, to these creased pieces of paper, in that, we can't, we make a lot of choices, and it sometimes is hard to make kind of the shape, so to speak, that we want the paper to make. But unlike origami paper, our tradition says there is actually an opportunity to go from like a very creased piece of paper to a new creased paper, to a new uncreased paper, through tshuva and through habit changing. Here, you can try to flatten it using a number of different ways, and I think I'll invite you, sort of as a spiritual exercise, to take that heavily creased piece of paper and try to flatten it out. Try to get those creases out, and ask yourself, what does that actually look like, as far as the kind of changes you want to make in your own life. So with that, I'll open it up to comments and questions, if there are any. If not, we can just appreciate our square bases and then make the choices / creases we need to make in order to make our lives into the shape that we're trying to make them into. Peter and Jennifer, any thoughts, questions, concerns?
I was thinking when you started off and you were talking about the prayers and doing them on a regular basis, I was thinking about the creases also could represent the prayers, and that when you do them every week or every day, that they stay in those creases, and that's kind of a nice thing.
Sure. Yeah, daily prayer 3 times a day, doing the same prayers are definitely, you're making that.
I wasn't even going that far. I was saying like just every Shabbos doing the prayers.
Yeah, and weekly too. I mean, the more you do things on repeat, like you're emphasizing that crease, and that those become habits. Those become natural ways that you carry yourself in the world, because that's how the fabric of your life is falling. It falls according to the creases you make.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I liked it a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah. It really.
Yeah.
Nice.
And by the way, if you're bored, I highly suggest origami as an activity for you, or for I have a 5 and a 3-year-old. That's where this one came from, by the way. This was my 5-year-old trying to do origami. But definitely a fun activity, and I hope now you have tools to make it even a spiritual activity too. So with that, unless there are any other comments and questions, I think we'll call it a day for our lunch and learn. Rosa, how are you today? I know you caught the end of it.
Sorry, were you talking to me?
Oh yeah, Rosa. I just said I know you caught the end of it, but any questions, thoughts you'd like to share?
No, I apologize. What happens is that I was on a Zoom meeting that started at 11, was supposed to end at 12, and went until 12:30, so I was trying to do both. So I did catch some of what you said about that I guess what you were saying is that when we make the folds, the origami folds, that we keep doing the same things over and over. Is that what you?
Like how the creases that we make in the paper for origami are akin to the choices we make in our lives, and then the paper falls according to the creases. Our life falls according to the choices. Yeah. Sum it up. Okay.
Right.
Well,
I love that.
Isn't that nice? All right, everybody. So Peter, Jennifer, Rosa, and Farnaz, who I didn't get to hear from today.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your session. Yeah.
No problem.
Thank you, Rabbi Rotenberg.
You're welcome, everybody.
Yeah, the connection is not so good.
Oh, that's too bad. That happens sometimes.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.
Okay, it's not, the connection is not working. I can't.
Sorry. Yeah, my connection's been a little unstable now. Okay, well, everybody,
Thank you.
off now. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.